What's happening, guys? It's Vlad G from Alpha Living. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. If it's the first video you're watching of me, I'm gonna do a full breakdown of DC versus Jon Jones for UFC 200. I'm gonna look at the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter and analyze it, and in the end I will let you guys know my prediction. If you do like this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more videos. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first strength is Daniel Cormier's wrestling. He is a world-class wrestler. He has competed in the World Championships of Wrestling in 2007. He got a bronze medal, which is very respectable. Before that, he got a few gold medals, Pan American Games and things like that. So, very, very decorated wrestler. He translated very well into MMA, into the octagon. Has a good ability to take people down, to scramble out of things during the fight, and make the best situations with his wrestling. So a very, very good defensive and offensive wrestler for sure. So that's definitely a big strength for Daniel Cormier. His ability to take people to the mat, and that way his opponents are unable to stay relaxed and focus on striking, because at any moment they can end up on a canvas. The second strength I want to talk about is the power in DC's hands. He has few knockouts in his career, but even when he does not knock out somebody, when he touches people, it hurts. You can see he has a lot of power. He's very good at pushing people back against the octagon, and then he can start striking with them, and as soon as they start countering him, he'll just clinch in and try to wrestle. So, a very good strategy. The good wrestler with good power in his hands is definitely a good combination. That's why I think Cormier has been successful this time. Now let's talk a little bit about DC's weaknesses. One weakness that I see in his game right now is that he does get hit quite often in his fights. He's not a very elusive guy that has a really good head movement. He has a fairly basic footwork. He doesn't have a good boxer's footwork, that he takes angles and things like that. He does not go against the cage and able to counter nicely and pull some Anderson Silva moves. He's unable to do that, right? He haven't caught up to that yet. He's just a good straightforward kind of MMA fighter boxer type of game, but he is unable to do this super high level boxing feints and head movements and counters. So he gives his opponents a little bit of confidence to keep attacking him and not getting super scared, right? He does have power, but the people are not worried too much because he doesn't counter too often. They can throw lots of kicks and punches and get away with it without getting punched too hard, versus somebody that counters very well. Another weakness that I see in DC is it does stay defensive for big periods of time throughout the fight. He would take like few minutes off sometimes, like when things are not going his way, when he's not pressing forward, right? When he gets pressed back a little bit, or even if he's pressing forward sometimes, he just seems to be too defensive. He just, throws little punches here and there and just kind of walks around and trying to regain his breath. So I'm not sure if it's a cardio thing or mental thing. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but he does seem to stay defensive for too long, big periods of time. It take a minute of just straight walking around defensive, throwing little punches, not really trying to connect too hard. So I'm not sure what the problem is, as I said, but that could be a big problem. He has done it in the previous fight with Jon Jones, and if he does that again in this fight, I think Jon Jones will take advantage of this opportunity and start, going harder at him. So now let's talk a little bit about Jon Jones. Let's talk about his strength. So the first strength I see in his game is his fast, snappy kicks. He can throw the kicks from any angle, any type of kick, super snappy, super fast, and usually is able to get out of the way and without getting punished for those kicks, right? He can throw a head kick or a shin kick, oblique kick, or a spinning back kick or something like that. He can throw it super fast, land not with too much power, but still land pretty nicely and get away and not get hit, not get countered. So that's a very, very good quality in Jon Jones fighting. He's able to constantly keep his opponent on his heels with all these kicks, all the angles, it's hard to focus and try to come up with some offensive plan where a guy just throws lots of kicks at you super quick and you're unable to do anything about it. So I think that's a good tool. He has thrown lots of those kicks in the first fight against DC, and I think he'll continue doing that this fight as well. Now, another huge strength of Jon Jones is the offensive and defensive wrestling. He's really good at taking people down. He's really good at controlling people on the ground when he gets people down. So he's a very solid wrestler, just like DC is. So I'd say they're kind of even in this criteria, the wrestling game. But Jon Jones has a bit of better ground control. He's able to control people nicely. He can cause some damage, sometimes ground and pound with the elbows. So he has better control and a bit of the MMA grappling advantage, I'd say. In straight wrestling, I think both DC and Jon Jones are fairly equal. So it will be interesting again, like last fight, both guys took each other down a couple times. So it'll be interesting to see if somebody gets some takedowns this fight as well. So definitely looking forward to see what happens with the wrestling game of both guys in this fight. Now, another low advantage for Jon Jones is his submission game. Once Jon Jones gets people down on the ground, he has good understanding of jiu-jitsu. He knows how to get people into submissions. He can sense, when somebody gives his neck or his arm. So he has a bunch of submissions against top guys. So I think Jon Jones has the advantage in the jiu-jitsu game, in the submissions specifically. Even though DC has been showing a little bit more submission game with Dan Henderson and Rumble Johnson, but still it's not on the same level. I feel like Jon Jones is a bit more versatile with his attacks, with his submissions. So if Jon Jones is able to take DC down and controlling for a little bit, I could see him trying to go for a submission in this fight. So we'll see what happens with that. Another huge strength for Jon Jones is his distance. He uses his reach really well. He has 12-inch advantage over DC, and he still fights even longer than his reach. So he fights really long and it's hard to hit him. He is able to hit his opponents without getting hit, and that's a big advantage when it comes to MMA. Now, another huge strength for Jon Jones is his clinch game. He's very good at clinching against the cage. He's good at clinching in the middle of the cage. He knows how to use leverage very well. Because he's the taller guy, he usually just makes the shorter guys carry his weight around and makes them really tired. That's what DC was complaining about the last fight. It's like, man, I didn't realize how strong he was and how he was making me carry his weight around. It made him gassed out in the long run, right? So he uses weight very nicely in the clinch. Just through all his years with wrestling, he just learned how to adapt his body to this game, to the wrestling game, and how to, maximize the effects from it. If you're a tall guy, you need to find different advantages that you can use against your opponents, because DC is as good at the clinch. But because Jon Jones is a bit taller, he's able to just kind of lean on DC the whole time, and DC is just like has to kind of stay straightforward and trying to use his lower back and his stabilizer muscles the whole time, not to get taken down or get elbowed or something like that. So he's always kind of stressed out about things and carrying Jon Jones's weight. So that's a big advantage, and I could see him using it again in this fight. Now, I see a couple weaknesses at this point in Jon Jones. The first one being ring rust. I do think ring rust exists when a guy does not fight for a little while. He forgets how it is in an octagon. Training is different. When you're fighting for real, when you're going 100%, it's very different, and all the nerves and everything, you need to do it fairly often to be used to this type of stuff. So I think that the ring rust will play a little bit of a factor in here. I mean, if you look at Jon Jones' last few years of fighting, right? He fought Alexander Gustafsson in a pretty tough fight in September 2013, right? Then he took 7 months off until he fought Glover Teixeira, right? Then he fought Glover Teixeira, took another 8 months off until he fought DC for the first time, right? So 8 months off. And then after that, since the last DC fight, 15 months hiatus went on, and then he fought OSP, Ovis and Prue. And that fight wasn't very good. Jon Jones didn't look himself, right? So I do think ring rust plays into it, and Daniel Cormier has been more active in the last 3 years, and he has a little bit more experience in those last 3 years, right? So training is training, but fighting is a bit different. When you're going 100%, it's slightly different. And the second weakness of Jon Jones that is coming to my mind, at least, he might be a little bit mental weak from all this hiatus of fighting, not fighting, being charged in court, and going through all the drug things and rehabs and family troubles. I think all that stuff takes toll on everybody, right? Like fighters, Jon Jones is just a human in the end of the days, and stress and all that stuff like really plays into those fighters' lives, and they have to perform 100% on the fight night. So if they have a lot of crazy stuff going on in their camp during the preparation, that's not a good thing. So that will detract a little bit from the fight. And also previously, Jon Jones hasn't been the guy who really trains really hard. He said many times that he barely trained for the Gustafsson fight, and he hasn't taken seriously some other fights in his career, and he still wins and looks very impressive. But lack of training, plus all those things that's coming into play, plus maybe he still uses drugs, I do not know. And if he uses drugs still, then maybe it's a problem as well. All those things accumulate and put pressure on the fighter, on Jon Jones. So we'll see how he reacts to all this. It might not be an issue at all, we'll see. But this is really the two weaknesses that I could think of when coming to Jon Jones currently. But overall he fights pretty perfect. He's pretty awesome, solid fighter, and it'll be an interesting fight. So finally, let's talk about my prediction. I do think that this fight, the second DC versus Jon Jones fight, will be a little bit more competitive. The first one was fairly competitive as well, but I think this one will be even closer, but I still give it to Jon Jones. Yes, he has been out for a while and going through courts and different things like that, but overall, if he can fight just a little bit better than when he fought against OSP in his last fight, I think he'll be fine. It's hard to take anything away from DC. He's such a solid fighter, there's really not too much bad things to say about DC. He looks like a good dude, good family guy, and it's hard not to cheer for him as well. And I feel bad for him because he is the champ right now, but nobody really gives him the credit of being a champ because he has not beat Jon Jones. So we'll see what happens in this fight. Anything can happen. It's MMA, right? But I really think that Jon Jones has a better chance to win. It's still going to be a close fight, but my prediction is Jon Jones by 4th round submission. That's my prediction. It could go for a decision as well, obviously, like the first fight, and that's very likely as well. But if there'll be a finish, I think it'll be towards the end, like 3rd, 4th, 5th round by submission. So I'm really excited to this fight. I'm really excited for the whole card. UFC 200 is going to be amazing. It's only a few weeks away. But in the meanwhile, if you guys can subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it. Every subscription and comment and all that stuff really motivates me to do more of these videos and more of this breakdown. So if you guys enjoy them, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you guys. Peace.